Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our brand value session as part of the Sweat series. We are really lucky to be joined by some real brand experts today, and I really hope you enjoy the session and find it informative and thought-provoking. Don't forget, as Izzy had mentioned, you can submit questions to our panelists at any time throughout the session using the Q&A tab on your screen, and I will endeavour to ask those questions towards the end of the session. I mean, this last few months has tested everyone in different ways. It's definitely true to say it hasn't been plain sailing for anyone or any brand. I'm sure we've all heard this analogy before, but I really do think it's so apt. You know, we may all be riding the same storm, but we are doing it in different boats. And I certainly know that that's true from a personal perspective, but it's so true for businesses as well. Brands had to adapt fast in response to the pandemic, ensuring they were still serving their members and their customers while they were unable to open their doors. And we've seen brands respond in different ways over the last few months, and having to adapt so fast has put pressure on businesses to ensure they're able to stay true to their brand and produce content that's actually up to their usual standard. We all understand the importance of having a strong brand, and with engagement moving almost entirely digitally for most operators, it has arguably become even more important and vital to ensure that businesses are staying true to their core brand values and that all of their teams are aligned with those values as well. So we want to explore today what a strong brand is and how you get there, how you build strong brand values and how these guide you through a period of crisis. How do you maintain brand quality and ultimately brand loyalty through a period of crisis as well? So I'm going to ask our experts to tell us what they've learned during this period and what tips they can share to help guide us ahead and navigate the next few months, knowing that sadly there is always a risk of a further lockdown ahead. Not to want to be the bearer of doom, but we do need to keep ourselves prepared. So enough from me. As I said, today we're lucky to be joined by three experts in this field. Chloe Kitch, Account Manager at Pro Insight Research Limited, Rory McKinty, Brand and Marketing Director at Gymbox, and Justin Rogers, Creative Director at 10 Health and Fitness. I shall start by asking each of our panellists to introduce themselves, then I shall probe them with some questions. After this, as I said, there will be an opportunity to take more questions from the audience, so do post any questions you have in the Q&A section if you haven't submitted these already, and we'll do our best to get through those as well. So Chloe, would you like to start by introducing yourself and giving us a bit of background about Pro Insight and the work you guys have been doing in the last few months?
Yes, yes, thank you, Dawn, and thank you for having me here today. So I am account manager at Pro Insight. We are a mystery shopping company and 70% of our clients are in the health and fitness sector. We mystery shop a variety of face-to-face inquiry, digital inquiry and telephone calls for them. The past few months for us gave us a bit of an opportunity to stop and reset. In the mystery shopping world, everything's very much 100 miles per hour, trying to get many mystery shop reports in on time. So it just gave us that time to pause and think about how we could better our business. And we did so by rebranding and creating a new website. In terms of what we did for our clients, it was very difficult to stay in contact with them because many of them had been furloughed. So we couldn't do the usual email check-ins. Obviously, you can't do your face-to-face meetings or call them. So we had to look at other ways to engage with them. And we did that by increasing our social media presence and making sure that we were just sending out positive messages to let them know that we were still here and supporting them. And as a result of that, we actually doubled our social media following, which is really positive. And now a lot of clients are returning to us quite quickly, which is really good news. We also have 25,000 mystery shoppers who are self-employed, spend most of their days out on the road, having lots of human interaction. However, that was all taken away from them. So I think it was a very lonely time for them. Therefore, it's just as important that we stayed in communication with them, and we did so by Facebook Lives for them, and also we do a lot of Zoom forums where we'd get about 20 mystery shoppers in a Zoom room just to chat about how they were, what they're missing and what they're looking forward to getting back to. So overall, we just made sure that we stayed present for our people.
Great stuff. Thank you, Chloe. Rory, how about you? Can you introduce yourself for us, please?
Thanks, Dawn. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're well. So I am the brand and marketing director at Gymbox. We have 11 clubs in London, and my role is very much around kind of marketing communications, and I lead all the digital brand, social communication strategies for the business. And I'm very much, as well as that, heavily involved from a brand point of view in other aspects of the business. So whether that's our internal brand values for our team members, whether that's working with our studio team to deliver what we believe is the best kind of studio and class product in the marketplace, or whether that's the partnerships that we develop. So it's making sure, and my role is very much about making sure there's consistency across all those touch points to ensure a consistent brand message wherever you experience the brand. My background is very much brand building. I've worked for Challenger and kind of rebel brands over the years, for Paddy Power, Everyman Cinema, where you look to challenge the norm and do things slightly differently. And Gymbox are kind of, no stranger to that. And certainly I'll go into it a little bit more in the session, but ultimately what we tried to do during this kind of crisis was, we were determined to kind of reopen in a better position than when we closed. And we became very obsessive about communication, both to our team members and also to our, members in club, and actually everybody who wants to interact with the brand. So our strategy has been very much around content and brand building and brand storytelling. So like every other, a lot of businesses are, overnight we had zero revenue. So we looked to, kind of harness our community and actually try to kind of develop kind of goodwill amongst kind of many different channels, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on.
Great stuff. Thank you, Rory. And last by no means, but by no means least, Justin.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm creative director of 10. We have 9, at time of lockdown, we had 9 studios across London. The last time I looked, we still do. Some of them are open, some are not. And as creative director, we're a small company, so people tend to wear quite a lot of hats, and I look after the marketing function, the PR function, I look after property, and I think most importantly, and particularly for today, I'm head of brand at 10. And 10 is very much a brand-driven business. It's been that way since its first days. Both my background and that of 10's founder, Joanne, we come from a marketing background. Previously, I was a copywriter and a creative director at a bunch of advertising agencies. And I also ran a small brand consultancy, primarily working with startups and small companies. So this is very much in my heartland, and something that at 10 we take very seriously. And I think since lockdown, as Rory was saying, your business transforms overnight from revenue to no revenue, from having premises full of people to having empty premises and all your people sitting at home wondering what's going to happen next. And that also includes your clients. So for us, what was really key is keeping our clients informed of what we were doing, making sure that we were trying to meet their needs in the best way we possibly could, and the way that chimed appropriately with their brand and what they would expect from us, and to gradually build up again, a suite of offering that we could bring to them that would bring as much 10ness in our offering to them, despite the lack of physical premises, as we possibly could. I'm sure we'll talk more about this going forward, and I certainly don't want to overshoot my first couple of minutes before Dawn cuts me off. So I think that'll probably do for now.
Great stuff. Thank you, Justin, and thank you all. Okay, so I'd like to start with asking you actually how you build a strong brand and maintain strong brand values, those two things being very different things. But Justin, can I start with you here?
Absolutely. I think there are 2 parts to this. The first is brand value, i.e. the value of your brand to your business as a fundamental, probably the most fundamental asset you have. And I guess then sort of slightly down from that is your brand values, i.e. the key drivers that determine who and how you are as an organization, and what your clients, your teams, and your stakeholders should expect from you as a result. So, I mean, if we talk about brand value in its purest sense, your competitors can copy your workouts, they can copy your fit outs, and I'm sure those of us in the fitness industry see quite a lot of that. They can copy your Instagram, they can poach your best staff, they can cut and paste from your website, and we've certainly seen a lot of that. But what they can't do is copy the essence that makes you uniquely you. So I think when we talk about what it takes to build a strong brand, we shouldn't mistake a distinctive identity for a distinctive brand. How you look is not who you are. And I think when we're talking about brand and brand values, we're really talking about the soul of an organization. We're talking about the soul of a provider. So for me, that's made up of two things. It's made up of your brand purpose, which is, I suppose, at its most simplistic, not what you do, but what you are for, your reason for existing beyond purely making money. And your brand essence, which is where your brand values tend to live, which is kind of not what you are, but how you are. And I think when we talk about building a strong brand, for us at 10 particularly, what that means is ensuring that for an authentically brand-driven business, as we believe we are, that your decisions and your actions are aligned against your brand and its values at all times. And so in some ways, I mean, lurching back to Dawn's question, how you manage your brand during lockdown should not be dramatically different from how you manage it during pre-lockdown. The same values should apply, the same personality of your organization should still exist. And I think that the drive for authenticity and the commitment to it should be maintained. And what it will do is determine how you respond to the various tasks that you face during adversity, particularly through something as business critical as lockdown. You think of it as the character of your business.
Thank you, Justin.
Pleasure.
I know, I mean, actually, Chloe, you've got that right behind you there. You guys have done a lot of work on sort of developing of brand values, both for ProInsight yourselves and for your clients. Can you talk us through a bit of that and how you do that? I think that helps to explain a little bit more about what those brand values, how you get to those brand values and how important they are.
Yeah, absolutely. So about 3 years ago, we were still quite a young company. We didn't really have any brand values, but it felt the right time to create some of those so that we could differentiate ourselves from our competitors. And instead of our managing director just sitting at his desk and writing down what he wanted our brand values to be, it was really important for us that we had the people in our company to be involved, because they would be the ones living and breathing it every single day. So we closed the office for the day, took everybody out, sat around a table and just asked them questions such as, what does ProInsight mean to you? What do you love about ProInsight? What do you think we do really well? What are you passionate about? And as a result of that, we've come up with our brand values that are behind me now. And they're now at the heart of our business. So everything you do in your work, day-to-day work, we refer back to them. So if you do something really well, you're praised for nailing the brand values. If you have a difficult conversation with a client or a mystery shopper, again, we refer back to the brand values and ask, which one could you have done better on? How can we change that next time? We also, in our one-to-one appraisals, you're asked as an individual to rate yourself and each other out of 5 on the brand values, and then we'll use those scores to coach and develop our team. It even goes to the extent that on a Friday night in the pub after a few drinks, someone's going to be picked at random to recite the brand values, and you've got to do it super quickly or you're not going to get another drink. So we have a bit of fun with it as well. In terms of clients, I think initially when we started mystery shopping the sector about 6 years ago, everyone was using the same mystery shop survey, that standard membership sales process. So if I was to visit 5 gyms in the same area and receive the same experience from each one, how is gym number 1 going to win me over from gym number 2? So it's become more important now when we're building a mystery shop program with our clients that we really get involved in their business, find out what their passions are, how they stand out from their competitors, what makes them unique. And then as a result of that, we'll build those into their mystery shop survey to ensure that they are being measured and staff are delivering on those brand values.
That's great. Thank you, Chloe. I think, well, Rory, I know Gymbox is certainly known for thinking differently and for your irreverent campaigns, and that all stems from the brand values that you guys have developed, so I'm sure. We all saw Gymbox and their call to open despite government guidelines initially, and we wouldn't expect anything less. I would love to hear more about how you approach marketing during the crisis, and how, of course, that's in line with what you are as an essence as a brand.
Yeah, so I think, look, first of all, there's no doubt coronavirus has tested us all kind of professionally and as individuals as well. It's been, you know, no template for it. So it's been quite an unusual time for everyone. And, you know, in one sense, we've never been so alone, but so connected at the same time. And I think, you know, with that idea in mind, we were very much about let's keep the lights on and continue to build a brand, use it as an opportunity to kind of engage with you know, all of our members, you know, potentially new members in future. Our Instagram following went up 42% during the period because people actually obviously migrated over and wanted that connection to feel close to a brand. And you know, we, as I said earlier, were determined to kind of reopen stronger than when we closed. And our approach, and of course done in a very Gymbox way with our tone of voice and our kind of brand, a reverent brand at heart, kind of set up almost a story around how do we build, you know, content, how do we do this in a way where actually we may not be 100% proud of what it is because we've got very high standards of our product in the gym. How do we adapt that and pivot to this digital offering? So, you know, like a number of gyms, we kind of did quite a few things. I think the first thing was we put on 5 classes on Instagram live every day, and again that was a way to also help out our instructors who, you know, and those guys went from earning, you know, money to the next day, you know, unfortunately a lot of them are self-employed and weren't earning money, and there was a lot of bit of anxiety around the time what the government were going to do there. So we put on, actually over lockdown, I think we put on 418 free classes on Instagram Live over the period, which I looked at the other day, which is crazy. And I think that created so much word of mouth and kind of goodwill. Now I know everybody and their dog was doing it, and Joe Wicks is kind of, you know, the most famous of it all, but it gave us an opportunity as a brand to showcase some of our more creative classes as well. You know, we were doing everything from combat to dance to HIIT to kind of holistic yoga. And I guess that allowed us to kind of get our kind of brand tone out there. And then in addition to that, we very quickly, you know, we closed before the government mandated us to close, and we filmed hours and hours of content over those 2 or 3 days before we were kind of sent home by Boris. So we had hours of content. What we were going to do with it, we hadn't quite figured out yet, but we knew we needed lots of content, which allowed us then to kind of put on daily workouts with our instructors. So again, filmed in the gym, very much on brand, showcased the beautiful interiors that we have. And again, I think we were closed for 118 days. So we had 118 different daily workouts. We very then quickly developed our kind of online digital platform out of the box. And that, again, we toyed with the idea around, you know, should we charge people for this during this time? We decided it was best to actually offer it for free. You know, some gyms everyone did things slightly differently. We as a brand felt it was good to add value to people, allow out of the box to be free, and offer a kind of an optional donation to the NHS. So we ended up raising £10,000 for NHS Charities Trust, kind of through our community, which again, just created that talkability about the brand at a time when everybody felt it was all doom and gloom. So that was a lovely, lovely piece, and we're going to continue to evolve that now. And I think, you know, moving away from the digital classes, we feel we're more than a gym brand. We're a lifestyle brand, and music, and and parties. We're quite infamous for a lot of our parties we do in the business. So we put on live DJ sets. We teamed up with a group called Provibers, who are professional vibers, and we did kind of quizzes with our whole community on Instagram of people talking. So that really helped. And we also looked at partnerships. So I mentioned, from a brand point of view, we try to add value to our members. So we partnered with some great brands. So Grind Coffee, who do some great things in London and beyond now, who had launched their pods and home delivery for coffee. So we partnered with them to offer our members discounts. We partnered with Pressed Juices. We also offered home kit, because people were actually feeding back to us saying, we don't have weights, there's only so much you can do with body weight workouts. So we actually partnered with all these different brands to kind of make people's lockdown experience as bearable as it can be. But of course we did that with our own, a little bit of humor. And as you kind of said, challenging the industry with reopening. I think there was a lot of people questioning why pubs could open before gyms. So we created our Gin Box t-shirt, which went down very well. And we had a limited run of those that we sent to members. And even just our tone of voice, keeping heart rates up and our rates down, is a typical kind of Gym Box way of keeping humor, but really talking about our safety as well. So it's just striking the balance between our fun and kind of leveraging that community. It's kind of how we kind of sailed the ship as such.
Great, thank you, Rory. Yeah, I'm sure we all spotted some of those campaigns and some of those partnerships on there as well. It was great. Justin, I know that 10 Health and Fitness approached things slightly differently when it came to developing the digital content for your members, and that's, you guys do a lot of different things, catering to different groups of people and different age groups and different abilities, and you also have your physio element to the business as well, and of course there's the 10 clinical element as well. Can you tell us a bit more about how your brand guidelines and your brand guides guided you during this period of crisis, and how you approach things differently?
Sure. I mean, as I said earlier, the brand underpins pretty much everything we do at 10, and it certainly was a pivotal factor for us trying to figure out how we were going to navigate through what people are now calling this new normal of ours. And we took the view that we had two options. One was to do it properly, and the other was to do it quickly. And we took the view that coronavirus is something that's not going away in a hurry. It's going to be around for a long time, and that we should take a beat and kind of gather our thoughts and make sure that what we did was the most brand appropriate course of action for us. And I guess two of our key values are expert and people driven. So we wanted a lot of what we have done since has been in line with those values. So to your point, Dawn, you're right. The easiest thing would have been to put on some IG Live classes, and we did that, and we got those up fairly quickly. Kind of in line with sort of Rory's comments earlier. I mean, over this time, our social media following has shot up by about 40%, from a slightly lower base than Rory's, admittedly. And we've, a lot of this has been about keeping our people engaged. So IG Live was a really useful tool for that. But when we wanted to move to a kind of more, I suppose, a more considered set of digital offerings, we had a lot more work to do, because we didn't really have any kind of online presence before. For various reasons, all our work was primarily done in the studio. So we have what we talk about as a circle of care, which is the way that our fitness classes align with our physiotherapy offering, which aligns with our massage and personal training services, and also affects the way that our clinical exercise prescription product fits with that. So we were able to offer digital physiotherapy consultancy, and our clients could use that both as self-paid offerings and also via their insurance services. We've been able to maintain our clinical exercise provision, and that's been really important to us, because this is an audience that is basically living with the the effects of a life-altering clinical diagnosis, whether that be cancer, diabetes, menopause, heart disease. These are people who, you know, we felt it was really important that we were able to maintain a continuity of service for them. And of course, last but by no means least, we really wanted to get back to delivering exercise to our clients. And for us, it was really important that we did it properly. So we, both from an expert point of view and also a people-driven point of view, because, you know, if you look on Instagram, you know, it would appear that all trainers and all influencers live in beautifully curated apartments with loads of natural light and walls with inspiring mottos all over them. Anybody who works in the fitness business knows that the opposite is the case. Like a lot of people who don't get paid an awful lot of money, trainers live in shared apartments, often under less than ideal circumstances, and their homes are rarely that photogenic. So we felt it was really important that we could give them a suitably professional place to work from when they were doing their live classes. So we had to wait until we could get back into the studio, make the studio safe. We made sure we invested in broadcast quality equipment, because again, you know, almost all classes are taught via Zoom or something similar. And what we'd seen is that the importance of the equipment you're using to deliver the quality of experience you want for your clients. So one of the things we did was put up 2 huge screens each side of the camera, so that when our trainers are teaching classes, they can see the people doing them, and they can see them at a scale, which means they're able to interact properly with them. They're able to deliver proper cueing, give the kind of progressions and regressions that our clients want. And you know, we also, for the same reason, made sure we kept a small class size. So I think we've maxed our numbers out at 20 people. We think any more than that, our instructors can't deliver the quality of service that our clients have become accustomed to. So for us, you know, everything from the environment we teach in, you know, our guys wearing uniform, the equipment, we record all our classes, we record the feed out of the camera in line with SIMSPA guidelines. So if there are ever any problems, we can go back to the individual class and see what's happened. And it's a great teaching aid. We've managed to align everything within our circle of care. So many of our trainers are what we call hybrids. They have other skill sets. So they're physiotherapists as well as trainers. So we can manage progression even digitally from exercise into physiotherapy or vice versa quite seamlessly. So this made us slower to market than it was for many other people. You know, a lot of people had really great product offerings the day after they closed. For us, we felt it was worth taking that extra 3 or 4 weeks to make sure that we got our offer right, not just for our clients, but you know, it was in line with what our brand requires of us, and also for that reason, we think in line with what our clients expect of us. And you know, I have to say, I think we've got it more right than wrong. The feedback we've had from clients has been brilliant. Now that we've reopened, it's interesting to see how many clients are following a sort of blended approach, and they're using our in-studio classes and they're using our online classes. And what's great to hear is that they're feeling that the online classes are, you know, a digital parallel to what we do in the studio, and they feel the experience is as similar as it can be. And I mean, I suppose one of the things we're most proud of, I think, is that our NPS score has gone up 10 points. We were at 82% before lockdown, and now we're at 92%, which maybe we shouldn't reopen anymore.
Don't say that.
Well, that NPS score matters. You know? My board gets very excited about that.
I'm sure they do. That's great. Thank you, Justin. You've actually led me into a question I wanted to ask Chloe, actually, very, very nicely. So thank you very much. I'm talking about brand quality and having to sort of pivot so fast, as you've said, Justin. It's been hard for some to keep that brand quality, and everyone's chosen to do things in different ways. with sort of varying degrees of success. And I know that you guys at Pro Insight did do some mystery shopping on the digital classes as well. It would be really good to hear some tips on you know, what worked well, what you guys felt worked well, and perhaps some things that that perhaps didn't, and give us a bit of insight on that. That'd be great. Thanks, Chloe.
Absolutely. So just a bit of background on the project we ran. I think initially, when the gyms closed, my initial thought was, gosh, how am I going to exercise? And I felt in a fortunate position that I knew of so many organisations. So I just started taking part in Instagram Lives on many different clients. And then some research started to show that when gyms could open, people would be interested in having access to both. So we had a bit of a light bulb moment where we thought, okay, they've had to turn this around very quickly. Not much training, not much preparation. Maybe we could provide some feedback on what was good and what could be improved. So between 4 of us, we looked at 140 organisations and discovered 50 of them had an online offering, and we mystery shopped them all. And by no means was this a tool to criticise any of them. You know, hats off to them all who had to, with 24 hours notice, can you do a live class to X amount of people? It's, you know, it's been really impressive, but hopefully we've been able to provide some good feedback so that they can make a better online offering if they choose to continue with that. We looked quite a bit on the brand, so how the brand came across through the online class. Some of the things we looked at were they wearing branded clothing, and was there a logo on display? And that might not seem too crucial. However, when I was doing 3 classes a day and then at the end of the evening having to write a mystery shop report on all 3, those who didn't have that brand anywhere, I was struggling to remember which instructor did that work for which organisation. And it just makes you so much more memorable if you have got that brand somewhere. And there were so many great classes I did, but I couldn't remember now which organisation they worked for, so I wouldn't go back to them. Whereas those who did have their brand on display, I went back and I kept doing their classes because I felt connected more to the brand. We also then asked, how did their online class reflect their brand in the gym itself? And also, did the instructor come across as an advocate for the brand? So were they showing passion for their brand? Were they relating back to the brand name? Was it the same experience that you would expect to get in club if you're a member there? And that's got about 68%. So it's still good, but there's work to be done. And hopefully now we've got a bit more time to stop, review it, deliver the right training, and then maybe more will start to continue it. And as a result, some are, and they're coming back to us and saying, can we continue these mystery shops? Because we want to track improvement and make sure that we keep doing it right and getting it better.
That's brilliant, thank you. Yeah, we've certainly all seen varying degrees of different ways in which classes have been run. And I suppose that's sort of a balance of, you know, how you determine what you're going to do on the short term and what you're going to do on the long term as well. Rory, can you give us some insight on how brands should balance long versus short term initiatives, like during a period of crisis specifically?
Yeah, sure. You know, it's such a difficult decision, you know, and to kind of get the balance right is quite challenging. So, you know, certainly from our experience and my experience in it, you know, the natural reaction, you know, in a crisis is to kind of hunker down, weather the storm, protect profitability, which is all very important. And, you know, for businesses to survive and come out the other side, it's very important. But, you know, as brand and me, the marketeer, you need to ensure that you're also looking at the long term and not being too myopic in your view. And, you know, I feel strongly that, you know, in the short term, if you turn that tap off, you will lose all the brand equity that you've built over those kind of years, and all the great work you've done to kind of build up your brand will kind of be forgotten very quickly. And, you know, I see a lot of brands, you know, really getting it wrong in terms of, you know, just because sales aren't coming in, and every brand in the fitness industry to kind of airlines to everyone else has had different levels of demand kind of drop. And I think by stopping all of your kind of communications, your social activity, is a little bit of a short-term kind of focus, and I think could actually harm your brand in the long run. And I think, you can build, again, from kind of the 18th of March when we closed our doors, we didn't make a penny, from any of our kind of digital activity or anything else that was going on. But what we tried to do is kind of look at that long term and build some kind of massive kind of brand equity with both our existing customers and also those kind of 40% kind of new followers we had on Instagram. And I think if you're in sync with how people were feeling, how they were thinking, what their demands were during the time, and looking kind of when this does eventually end, actually, how do we then, dare I say, kind of take advantage of it and actually kind of build up sales again quite quickly. And I think that's what we were trying to do, is try to add value in the longer term. And really, it's about getting that balance right. We invest so much time and money into content. And it's interesting what Justin was saying as well. So, we took a slightly different approach in some of it, in terms of, our content initially. We went for the kind of quick approach. We did look to try and make it as on brand as possible, but there was certainly that demand from our users to kind of do that. And I think what we were trying to do in parallel was look at how do we improve that content on a regular basis? How do we actually get back into our gyms, get very on brand content? And looking ahead to that new normal about this kind of hybrid model. The world is very different now, and actually how do we, while serve our customers in the short term, look at the long term and understand, London is a very different place. I'm going around to our gyms at the moment and it's quiet, it's very quiet. And as people slowly come back, it may not be it won't be that 5 days a week in London. People may be coming in for 1 or 2 days a week. So we've been looking at that longer term approach about how do we combine our bricks and mortar and our digital model as one offering. And also, we've taken the opportunity to almost do a bit of a brand health check on ourselves. And, we've been known for, very irreverent, controversial, disruptive campaigns in the past. And that isn't something that we're going to stop looking at, but it is a new world. So we looked at our brand and we undertook at the time a bit of a repositioning project, just to understand what our tone of voice should be. How do we make sure we are relevant in this new world? How do we communicate to our members? So, balancing, certainly when we open, balancing that safety and humor message as well has been very important. So look, I think it's really, to kind of answer your question, it's about fulfilling those short-term needs for your customers, but also making sure that you're looking long-term, that you can take advantage of those opportunities that will exist eventually. Because as Justin kind of said earlier, you shouldn't change how your brand doesn't change, and how you act shouldn't change really whilst you're closed or not closed. Actually, it's about just dialing it up in the long term.
Thank you, Rory. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just one of those things that I think we've seen every brand respond in a different way, and some things have worked super well, others perhaps less so. But as you say, there was no blueprint for this. None of us knew what was going to happen. We certainly couldn't have predicted this. So I think everyone needs to give themselves a pat on the back for having weathered this so far, quite honestly.
It's been quite fun, actually, in a really weird way. I kind of enjoyed it, like in a sadistic way.
It's certainly kept us all thinking, hasn't it? It's kept us on our toes, without doubt. I don't think I've been quite as busy ever, but doing things entirely differently to what I ever thought I'd be doing. So, yeah. So one thing I did want to ask, I suppose, just to close our sort of set of questions before I take any from the floor, is really just sort of a final word from everyone in terms of, what learnings have you made during this period, and what final tips would you give brands looking ahead? I know it's something we're all hoping won't happen, but we do have to bear in mind that we are at risk of another lockdown again, and how do we better prepare for that next time round? Should, hopefully it doesn't, but should it happen? And I suppose that's a question for everyone, really. I don't know who would like to kick off on that one. Do you want to go, Chloe?
Yeah, I'll go. For me, the key word is engagement. I think, like I said previously, when we looked at 140 organisations and only 50 of them had an online offering, it very much seemed that there was a proportion of clubs who sort of were told they had to close, they sent out that message to say we're closed, and then they downed tools and you didn't hear from them again. And I think what Rory and Justin have talked about throughout this session is staying in touch with their community. And if you close down that community during this time, it's going to be harder to get them back. So like I said at the start, you know, we very much wanted to be present for our people, keep them engaged, keep them interested. And I think those who have engaged well, kept a high social media presence and told their members, we miss you, we can't wait to have you back, they're the ones who are going to come out of this better, because more people are likely to return. So yeah, I think being present for your people is key.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Chloe. And very true indeed. Justin.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, you know, we've always been quite regular communicators with our clients. We send out a lot, possibly quite old fashioned. We send out a lot of client newsletters. We obviously do quite a bit on social media, but we've always thought it's really important to explain to people why you're doing what you're doing as much as you can, because that way, even if they don't agree with the thing you've done, as long as they've bought into your reasoning, it will pay off. So, to save my blushes, I'm not going to tell you what it was, but we tried one thing during lockdown that backfired on us quite spectacularly, and we got quite a lot of complaints from our members, and it was quite galling to open up the email the morning after and read 30 or 40 emails saying, why the hell have you done that? It's terrible. And what we did was to write back to everybody individually and say, well, look, I'm sorry you feel like that. Here's why we did it. Here's what we were thinking. And with probably a couple of exceptions, everybody else got back in touch and said either, okay, now it makes sense, or I might not have done that myself, but I can see why you did that. A couple of people said, well, you're all bastards anyway, but you know, you can't persuade everybody. But I think you have to be, particularly when there is no physical face to go and see, you have to present as human a face as you possibly can. Even if you're doing it digitally. And I think during lockdown, we've tried to make sure we talked about the hygiene measures we're putting in place, how we're doing distancing, what equipment, how we're keeping the studios safe to enable clients to return, all that stuff. I think you have to kind of stand in your client's shoes and ask yourself, what is it they need to know? What is it that might be worrying them? And try and do your best to answer those concerns as honestly as you can. And I think, you know, I suppose the big lesson, lurching back to the question you actually asked me rather than when you didn't, the big lesson we've learned is that, those who know TEN will know that as far as exercise is concerned, dynamic reformer Pilates is the thing we're best known for, and the thing that I would say we do better than anybody else. And in many ways, previously it had been a barrier to our having a digital presence, because some of us, particularly me, were concerned that if that was the thing we were best known for, you know, most people don't have $3.5 grand worth of reformer in their living rooms. So we weren't going to be able to offer the workout that we were famous for. And how would our brand and our expertise translate across to a non-reformer based offering? And what we've learned is that we didn't need to worry, that people were perfectly happy to assume that anything else we were doing digitally would be done with the same values, the same qualities, the same things that matter to us, our focus on quality of movement rather than just intensity of effort. Those kind of, I suppose, experiential qualities that we try and embed in everything we do. I think people seemed confident that whatever we did, we would do it like that, and they would try it. And that's proved to be the case. So for us, I think we will, whatever happens, we will be continuing that blended approach. We will continue to offer digital services as part of our full suite of products and services for the foreseeable future. And, it's been a really positive and valuable lesson. So
good to hear.
Yeah.
I think so true that, really like we've touched on all the way through this, it's about that sort of open, honest communication and really helping our customers to understand, why we're doing what we're doing. And just, I think a lot of them will understand that we don't have the blueprint for this, we don't have all the answers, but we're trying, you know, everyone's trying to do the best that they can. And I think as long as they understand your rationale for things, that really does go a long way to helping that communication process. Rory, last but not least.
So look, I think the guy before me talked about communication, which I was going to talk about, being obsessive communication. But I guess to your point then, Dawn, about that kind of blueprint, for me, the other big learning from this experience is you know, to be agile, to kind of move quickly, you know, not to be, you know, don't be a perfectionist. You know, we will make mistakes. You know, the sentiment around kind of customers and the world was changing quite quickly. So you need to kind of be able to kind of move quickly to meet those kind of changing demands. I think for us, and certainly from our point of view, from Gymbox, it's kind of like, you know, get it going, constantly improve it, keep learning, adapting and tweaking it. And I think, you know, God forbid, you know, we do enter another lockdown, which I know everyone's, you know, fingers crossed that doesn't happen. I think the kind of main tip from me would be, you know, definitely keep the lights on. You know, while it might be tempting to kind of cut your media spend or to kind of stop engaging with customers and members, you know, continually kind of keep the lights on. I think internally as well, you know, we are all, and I'm sure everyone on this call today, and, you know, we are all so busy generally in our day-to-day world and working. So it does give you a small opportunity to kind of get off that hamster wheel and use it as a time to think, reflect on your brand purpose, reflect on your audience, and are you talking to your audience in the right way? And I think, you know, how do you engage with them to kind of maintain that point of difference? I think, you know, get off that hamster wheel and have a think about that. And I think probably finally, you know, look for new opportunities. It's you know, it sounds crazy, but in a time of crisis, it's the best time to innovate, to evolve. You know, whether that's how how we've all done it from a kind of a digital pivot with getting our offering to, you know, to members and to the community via digital, but also, you know, look at other opportunities to reach your audience. You know, media, we've looked at, you know, certain audiences that you may not have been able to target, that slightly older audience have had to embrace digital. So whilst you're not able to kind of maybe get that slightly older audience in the past who wouldn't engage on Instagram or Facebook, they're suddenly all on there because they want to be connected. And also media kind of spend, actually, you know, TV, radio has kind of dropped down in price to a certain place. So actually you're able to kind of reach audiences that you may not have been able to kind of reach before. So I think, you know, look for those opportunities would be kind of my final tip, because, you know, it's a great opportunity to actually do something differently and kind of challenge yourself and actually really kind of add value.
Yeah, that's really true. Thank you, Rory. I think as we said before, audiences are a bit more understanding, knowing that everyone's navigating this in different ways and without any blueprint, as you've said. So I think it is almost it is now the time to take those opportunities to try those things that perhaps you wouldn't have done before, for fear of maybe not getting it perfect first time round. You know, now is the time to actually give that a try and start those things that perhaps you wouldn't have done otherwise. Thank you, guys. I am just having a look here. We haven't got any questions from the floor just yet. If anyone wants to post anything, please do. We've got a few more minutes, so I thought I might ask one further question. We've touched on this a little bit throughout, and really, I'd really like to understand your thoughts on whether or not, and I know that Rory and Justin, I know what you guys have been doing, what your brands have been doing so far, but whether or not you brands should have been charging for digital classes during the lockdown phase, and for those that haven't been, how do you make that transition to then starting generating income from a digital platform? I know that you've both done it in different ways, so I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. And of course, Chloe, from what you've seen brands doing as well with the experience that you guys have had through this period.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in then. I don't know, Justin, feel free to kind of jump in as well if you want, but certainly, you know, our view initially was, you know, we will not charge for this. We will support our members at home. You know, we had, you know, really great instructors, but yes, working out in their bedrooms or their back gardens, and people being a bit sympathetic to the fact that this isn't, you know, the most on brand piece, but actually forgiving us because we're helping them. Now, that was free. As I say, we kind of did a donation and raised £10,000 for the NHS, in case you didn't know. And we've continued to do that throughout lockdown. We are now in the process of actually going really big with our digital platform. So we, as I said earlier, that short-term versus long-term piece, we have been looking to improve it. It's going to be moving from an on-demand platform to also having daily classes on there, in addition to just being able to go on demand. We're recording really great content. You know, we've invested in our team and hired a kind of videographer to kind of get some really great content on there. And we will migrate that into a paid platform for both members and non-members in the coming weeks. And I think it goes back to that kind of customer demand, and actually people not being in London all the time, our gyms, you know, being solely in London, giving them the offer to kind of come into the gym 2-3 days a week as a member, but also then to be able to kind of work out at home, and actually looking at kind of that pricing plan and the model, and actually just challenging ourselves on our actual product and how we should structure that. You know, the great thing about our platform now is kind of we had users from 48 different countries in the world. So we've extended that brand beyond just London, which has been a great opportunity, and actually allows us to kind of, you know, build that community and have this kind of paid for platform, you know, all over the world. So, you know, we've taken our time to think about how we would kind of migrate it into a paid platform, but until we had the content that we were proud of and that was on brand and represented the same experience that you get in a gym box club, we were very kind of hesitant to do it. But we're going to be in that process now where we're going to look to do it, and you know, fingers crossed it goes well.
That's great. Spread the Gymbox brand.
Yeah.
Beyond the UK is fantastic.
Yeah, it's exciting. Really exciting.
Yeah, really exciting.
It's really interesting to hear what Gymbox are doing, because it's kind of the opposite to what we're doing. Because we started with live classes, and we are just finishing now building the microsite and finishing up all the content to start introducing on demand, which will launch in a couple of weeks' time. So we've taken very much the other tack. I think, but in response to the question, you know, should you be charging? How do you make the transition? I think, you know, sorry, but I think the answer is it depends on your brand. It really depends on who you are and what you're offering. If you look at what's available digitally now, there is a massive free content available to anybody who wants it. Workouts of all shapes, size, and expertise. The danger with, you know, the advantage of free content is obviously that it's free and it's accessible to all. The disadvantage is it tends to commoditize what's being offered. And I think you've got to look at, you know, with your brand, you've got to, you know, any operator thinking about how they should do this has got to look at the product they have and how it fits into the matrix of commodity to niche. And at 10, we are definitely, we kind of talk about it as being niche at scale. So everything we do is a little off the mainstream. You know, we don't do, we do a small amount of yoga. We do very little HIIT. We don't do circuit training. We do Pilates-based exercise in the main. So, and we spend a lot of time and energy getting it to be the best possible quality we can, focusing on quality of movement rather than just working up a huge sweat. So for us, I think we felt that at one level, it's important to not devalue what we do, not devalue the expertise of our teams and the investment that they've made in their own expertise and that we've made in supporting them. On the flip side, we also, I think, as you know, as Rory did, we started with we still maintain a free IG Live platform because we also think it's important that you give people easy access to what you're doing. They can then make the choice for themselves whether they believe that what you're offering is worth paying for or not. And then you end up in the conversation about if you're charging, how much are you charging? And I think that's the one which is, you know, it's the $64,000 question for everybody. And you know, going back to Rory's earlier point, I think this is definitely one of those areas where particularly if you're relatively new to digital, you've really got to experiment. You have to get it wrong a couple of times potentially. You've got to test the waters, try different price points, see what people feel is appropriate to pay for your brand. And that in turn will also give you some useful insights into not just how you see your brand, but how the world sees it, which ultimately is the most important bit.
For sure, for sure. Thank you, Justin. And we've got a couple of minutes left. Chloe, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, just on that, I think the government have obviously launched this campaign, Get Fit to Fight COVID. And I know throughout lockdown, I was at home so much that I was doing more exercise than I'd ever done before. And I think for those brands who have decided, right, the online classes got us through a sticky patch, but shut them down, thank you, good night, we're now open. It's creating a lot of restrictions for their members. For example, now I'm back in London, I leave the house at 7 a.m, I get back at 7 p.m. There's no time for me to go to the gym. And if my club is offering something online, it means I can keep up that exercise that I was working to previously. And I think, again, like Rory was saying, we're breaking down those geographical barriers. I don't live in London, I can't go to a gym box, it's not convenient for me, but I would absolutely pay to be able to do it in my front room. So I think it's just making things more available to people is really important, and don't take something away that people have loved throughout lockdown.
Sure. Great. Guys, we're a couple of minutes away from the end. I haven't seen any more questions come through just yet. Oh, hang on. I take it back. We've had one come through. We've got 2 minutes. This is from Barry Squires, Head of Sport at University of Brighton. What importance do you place in your brand associating with well-known service and product brands in different markets to add value to the user experience, be it mutual partnership, exchange of services, or adding value through approved sponsorship that fits your brand value? That was quite a mouthful there. I'm sorry. Someone take that on. We've got 2 minutes. Otherwise, I'm sure we can pop something back to you, Barry, via email. Otherwise,
I guess the bit I heard from there was kind of partnerships and adding value. So I don't know if it's going to answer the question, and I'm feel free, Barry, if it wasn't the right answer, we can email you something over. But I think it goes back to, for me, if you're engaging in any partnership, it's picking partners that complement your brand, that have a similar audience. As I mentioned earlier on, we work with Grind, which are quite a cool urban coffee brand in London. We've kind of worked with Press Juices, which were kind of really on top of home deliveries at the time for people shielding. They kind of expanded their offering to groceries as well as juices. So, I don't know if it's answering Barry's question, but ultimately I would say if you're going to get involved with other partners, make sure they are aligned to your brand values, and don't just pick partners for that short-term quick win that might actually damage your brand in the long run, because actually I think that could do more damage than good.
that's very true. Thank you, Rory.